What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News. I got to counterpunch something today. It's been a long day, but I must counterpunch this particular topic because this is a big topic for the sport of boxing. You know, it's important for the sport of boxing involving John Arthur Johnson. Jack Johnson was the first African American heavyweight, and he was pardoned as of the 24th of May of this year by the President of the United States for a crime that he was convicted of and was sentenced to 1 year called the Mann Act, which he brought his white girlfriend across state lines for a means of prostitution and other acts, immoral acts, rather. Um, and the ceremony was joined by, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, along with Sylvester Stallone, Deontay Wilder, and Lennox Lewis. Okay. Uh, and Linda Bell, which was his great niece. Okay. So they were there. So you had family, you had celebrities, and you had two boxing figures there, one of present, one of old, which was a good balance. And I see a lot of people, that, first of all, let me start with this. Jack Johnson he was an underrated fighter because of the things that he was doing. They didn't even want him to fight. He won the championship, first of all, in December 26, 1908. Okay. It was so bad that they didn't even want the idea of a fighter being of African American descent to even fight a white fighter, right? In the States. So they had to have it in Sydney, Australia. After 5-6 rounds of Jack Johnson beating the guy to a pulp, okay, they cut off the media feeds from America. There were riots. 8 blacks were killed, or African Americans were killed, 2 whites in a riot, because of a fight, because of the heavyweight championship of the world that was owned by the first African American champ. Okay, so give you a little backstory, and he liked white women. So, if you don't know about Jack Johnson, that was a little backstory of Jack Johnson. He did what he wanted to do. He was a pioneer of the sport, and he was one bad man in the ring, and he lived the life like he wanted to live, and he was pardoned by the President of the United States. Now that's big because that's big for the sport of boxing, because a lot of people had Jack Johnson, as a public figure, as a pioneer of the sport, and he definitely paved the way for the next black or African American boxer, which was Joe Louis. So if there was no Jack Johnson, there would be no Joe Louis, and Joe Louis was a guy that they carefully, constructed his career and guided his career to be nothing like Jack Johnson. So everything that you see Joe Louis as, Joe Louis Barrow, right? So everything that you see Joe Louis did, Jack Johnson did the opposite. He was the renegade. He did what he wanted to do. He drove fast cars. He had several white women. He did whatever he wanted to do. The guy was dangerous in the ring, and he had a radical life outside the ring. He was like first of all, the first boxer, but second of all, the first rock star of the unit, one of the first non-white rock stars. So it was big in the sport of boxing to have Jack Johnson around at that time, during that time, which was one of the most racist times in American history. Forget what you hear now, back then was the real deal. You had people that hated the sight of you being in the same stores, etc., etc. Everything was segregated, right? Yet he was doing all these things for the sport and for other people, right? Paving the way and then living his life. Okay. Now, backstory done to the present. he was pardoned. Now, a lot of people, would say, what does that matter now to him? Because he's been dead for a very long time. He's been dead for almost 80 years. Okay. Uh, Definitely 70, right? He's been dead for a very long time. So what would a pardon do for him now? You can't go back and give him that pardon because he's gone. I would say it like this. I mean, it's good that he's acknowledged that. I mean, that at least he's acknowledged, to say the least, he's acknowledged, as a person that was pardoned. It sounds great. It's good for Deontay Wilder, because it shows you what type of person he is. We all know what Anthony Joshua was doing, going on talk shows, having public appearances at basketball games. But, what was Deontay Wilder doing? Deontay Wilder was a representative as the American champ, also of African American descent, that was there to show support of Jack Johnson. You know what I mean? That's big. And that's respectful. So whoever has something to say about Deontay Wilder doing this, in my opinion, they can kiss my ass because, Jack, you look at Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder could have picked that defensive role. He could have been that guy that said, you know what, I didn't vote for you, or whatever his political, beliefs were. And like a lot of, athletic figures, they could say, well, they could reject the invitation. But he understood what the purpose was. Okay. The purpose was, first of all, it was to respect a fighter and to pardon a fighter that was wrongfully accused back in the day. That was a pioneer of the sport. He was there to support that. I'm all for that. I think he did the right thing because normally what you would deal with would be a guy, or that's not the typical. It's surprising to me. Okay. It's just surprising to me how, Deontay Wilder picked it. And it's a good surprise because, he chose to support Jack Johnson, which was great. Lennox Lewis was there, which was another balance, which was another icon, heavyweight champion. And then, of course, you had Stallone, which started this whole thing. You know what I mean? So it's all big for the sport. Anybody that's a boxing historian would be proud of that day of May 24th because this is when it happened. Okay. Now, what does it mean? It means that Deontay Wilder now gets support and exposure due to his, part in supporting Jack Johnson. I mean, you're with the president now. People are knowing who you are. That's not even boxing fans. That's big for Deontay Wilder. You know what I mean? It's a chance for him to turn this around because it's, because my thing is, I just done some recent videos on Joshua and what he was doing, and this is actually a good response. This was actually shows what actions Deontay Wilder is doing to, I mean, I don't know if it's, directly or attempted to do that, but inadvertently, he's showing support. I mean, he might have was just showing support to Jack Johnson, but maybe he didn't know at the same time, simultaneously, he was actually getting exposure for being the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. And that's big, so again, whoever has problems with Deontay Wilder, showing up and supporting Jack Johnson, they already know what they can do because I've already said it. Okay. Because, a lot of guys, say, oh, you're not woke and all that, man. You know what I mean? And a lot of these people that are saying that are not even boxing fans. They pretend that they are, casual to say the least, but they're not even boxing fans. So, they don't even care about the movement. Now, the realistic part of this is, what would it do for Jack Johnson? Yeah, it honors him. I get it. But guess what? Forget doing the least. Okay. The pardon is the least you can do. You know, the ceremony was good and grand and dandy. But what you could do for Jack Johnson, Linda Bell, his great great niece, you know, give them some damn money. How about that? How about give them something that at least he would have made if he was prize fighting when he was locked up? Now, doesn't that make sense? It happens all the time when they figure out a guy that's been locked away, you know, and then they sue, do a civil suit or whatever, and then they get paid, right? But I think that should have been done more for Jack Johnson's family that's alive and existing today, to give them compensation for wrongdoing back then. That makes more sense. It's one thing to, you know, to do something bad for someone and say, I'm sorry. But it's another thing to do something as an act to show that person that you're sorry. Does that make sense? So that's my counterpunch on the whole debacle of everything. But congratulations to Jack Johnson. It's good for Deontay Wilder and Lennox Lewis, but mostly Deontay Wilder, you know, for exposure. So good for him. That's great for him. And I'm glad the president did the right thing of acknowledgement. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this particular celebration. Leave your comments below. Please subscribe. And you guys been counterpunched. Peace.